Welcome to Season 2 with the Market Mystics, where we discuss and redefine markets, wealth, and trading on Earth as it is in heaven. Join us on the journey while we consider new possibilities with special guests who might just challenge a few perspectives. Get ready to dive in deep with your hosts, Joshua and Kim.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the latest episode with your Market Mystics. I don't want to put a date on this because we're recording it in advance.
Yeah, if you're listening to this, I'm on my honeymoon. That's fun.
It's so fun. I'm so excited for you guys. I'm like unnaturally excited for these two people to get married.
I'm excited as well. Yeah.
That's good because you're very actively involved in that.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, so we are recording a few episodes early as maybe some topics or thoughts arise, so that we can post it while I'm away. And so we want to be consistent in our uploading. So here we are.
Here we are. Okay, so this is what I want to talk about today. I say wanted to talk about. This is what came up. And it kind of has a bit of a basis from a conversation I had with a friend a couple weeks ago, which when this comes out, it will be a month or two ago.
Mhm.
But we were talking about, she was kind of telling me this process of her stepping away from her faith and some of the things that have come up that kind of pushed her more toward that. And this is something that I hear often, maybe not in personal conversations, but just when you hear about people who kind of give up on the faith. And it has to do with all of the terrible things that they may learn about that are happening around the world, like travesties to humankind, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just terrible things. And then really questioning, well, God, where are you? Why are you letting this happen? And this is one of those questions. I mean, this comes up a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You talk to a non-believer and always it's like, well, where's your God with this situation?
Yeah. I mean, cancer, is from like personal health issues clear to like slavery and sexual abuse and things like that. Yeah.
Right. And in particular, one of the things that was brought up had to do with like child slavery and trafficking and like, I don't know what you would call it. Maybe being captured, not being captured because that's like an action, but being held captive, I suppose.
Yeah.
And okay, so that's the premise, this kind of that question that always gets laid out. And until that conversation, I really didn't have a huge answer to that. Except that in this conversation, she happened to bring up a situation that I had a little bit of experience with. And this is where we're going to get into kind of the wild, wacky, and weird stuff of faith. Okay. So just hold on to your pants, I suppose. Hold on to your chair. I think that's probably what people really say. But I'm saying hold on to your pants because your chair probably won't go with you. So I had some experience with this in that in my relationship with the Lord. And if you don't know, this is how we operate in the spirit sometimes based on the leading that we have and the relationship that we have with the Lord. But I've had experiences where I'm engaging with the Father and he sends me into those situations to go and help. However, this isn't going and buying a plane ticket and knocking on doors until I find something and then going in and asking questions. That's not how that happened, at least in this situation. People can be led that way, but for me, it wasn't. But what it had to do with was me going to the Father and going, okay, I'm here for whatever you need me to do. You tell me to do it and I'll do it. I don't care how weird it is. And there's some surrender in that. There's some surrender in pride, ego, self, all those things.
Yeah.
Acceptance by the world at large, all of those things. But it came from that and him sending me to this place, inserting me into a situation. And sometimes it is for spiritual battle. And sometimes it is for the sake of the person who's being abused. And sometimes it is to speak into a situation. Sometimes it is to free the captives. Sometimes it is to simply infuse the frequency of the Father into it. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I know I've been sent into some of those situations where I go guns blazing. I mean, I don't have a gun in the spirit, but you know, the whole
On the offensive.
yeah. And I'm tearing crap up, right? But I've also had other situations where I go and I just sit with these people who are broken and not even being considered part of humanity, like not even having thoughts, not ever having experienced love, and just bringing that piece of the Father to them. And I think this is the stuff that we don't talk about, Josh. Like, we don't talk about this stuff, certainly not publicly. And then here I am, like, just I'm spilling the beans. Okay. Sometimes the Father has us do things that are way outside our normal way of functioning in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And why don't we talk about it? And why don't we actually allow ourselves to be open to making a difference, regardless of how it looks, like taking our expectations off of it? I don't know. That's the beginning of the conversation. What do you have to say, Josh?
Your friend's situation where it was like learning about these things made her question, where is God? What is he doing about it? And in probably half of those situations, your conclusion is going to be, well, there must not be a God. And in half of the situations, your conclusion may be, well, there has to be a God or there's no hope for this. Like,
Yeah.
you can sort of go either way with that conversation. I was just having a conversation with somebody this morning about, like, uh you know before kind of modern civilization, there's proof of, like, large meteor strikes in the earth that wiped out animal civilizations, whatever you want to call it. And they were tying that to, like, in the Bible, when Abraham is going to sacrifice Jacob, and all of a sudden there's a ram stuck in the tree. And they're like, either these are totally random occurrences, or at the beginning of time, somebody set up, like, wound up a clock and was like, I'm setting these things in motion so that 3 days before Abraham is going to go sacrifice Jacob, a lion scares a ram up into a mountain and it gets stuck in a bush.
Mm.
Like, either these things are totally random or there's a point to it. And I think it's something that's really fascinating to ponder. Like,
Wow.
why are these things happening? Why do these travesties happen? Um, why, with people who are consistently abused or neglected or trafficked or whatever it is, why is that happening? And I I love the thought of, like, do something about it. Like, I know you and I have talked about this many times, but often I've had conversations with people where they're just waiting for God to come do something. And sometimes I think God's waiting for us to do something. And so I love that, like, in your situation, you were able to share, like, God led me to do some things. And the things he led me to do, weeks, months, whatever it was later, there was actual news articles about that happening. Like, there was proof that, whether or not you physically did something or you released the energy for this to happen or whatever, however it happened. You saw it happen before it happened. And that's, like, amazing. And, like, I sometimes think our nervous system is the way God interacts with this dimension.
Mm.
Our our bodies are the way that he interacts with this dimension. And maybe it's possible that once in a while he bypasses that and he just sticks his finger down here and twirls it around. But I think more often than not, he's waiting for one of his children to say, "Hey, that tugged on my heart. What can I do about that?"
Right.
And I think that that's like, I mean, that's kind of the point of this conversation, is like, you're left with a couple options. Like, either there is no hope or there has to be hope. And if there has to be hope, then, like, do you have a role to play in that?
Yeah. I think that's super important. Um, and this is kind of where I was hoping to go with this conversation was I know that this stuff can be kind of weird. Like if you talk about taking action in a physical way, it doesn't seem so weird. If you talk about taking action in a spiritual way, it's going to lose a whole lot of freaking people. Like it just is.
Yeah.
Um, but we're also in this time where I don't know if I want to say the church, but just kind of around the world, people are waking up.
Mm.
There are realities that are being revealed that people had no idea were happening, and all of a sudden it's out in the open, or blatantly obvious, or something along those lines. And then we're left with the, well, this is happening, now what? Right.
Mm.
And so I guess my hope would be that if you find yourself in that kind of situation, that you get yourself to a place where you're willing to at least ask, how can I be used in this?
Yeah.
Like direct me in how to go, show me, tell me, reveal to me, whatever it is, whatever the language is, and be open to doing whatever it is that he asks you to do. I don't really understand how a group of faith people, those were my quote fingers below the camera, faith people can legitimately close themselves off to the things that happen in the spirit or operating in the spirit. I don't quite understand it, obviously. But I think we're coming into this time where it's super important to be able to align with the Father and do whatever it is he's asking you to do, even if it makes you look like a freak.
Yeah.
Like, are you going to be a John the Baptist? Maybe. Maybe locusts and honey are good. I don't know.
But do what you're called to do.
I mean, that's it. That's exactly it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've sat dormant for far too long, going and sitting somewhere and expecting to have the Lord come and have an encounter with us. Well, what if we flip that and we go to him and ask for an encounter? You know what I mean? Like, don't say, well, I can't make it to the building this Sunday to sit in the spot that I sit in every Sunday to go hopefully have an encounter with him. What if you meet him where you are? What if you go to him?
Mm.
What if you realize that he's been with you all along? You never had to go to a certain place. Like, can we just put that on the table? I don't know. I'm not really trying to be horribly abrasive.
Yeah.
I just think when we look at these things that are huge and these questions that come up to people all the time and cause people to lose faith all the time and even deny the existence of God or Yahweh, I always say this, like, I don't know what to call him, whatever you call him, Father, the Creator. So to question the existence of him simply because things aren't being done about it, what if it's because you're not freaking doing anything? See, I am getting abrasive. Sorry.
I know we've talked about this before, but it's kind of the difference between waiting to be told to do something and going and asking if you can do something. Like sometimes I think it's helpful to have a little bit of momentum that God can direct rather than being stagnant and not doing anything that he can't do anything with.
It's true. It's true.
It's easier for him to steer a ship that's already moving than, it takes less energy to steer a ship that's already moving than one that isn't moving. Like, and I think that that's kind of like at the heart, what we're trying to say is just like, man, if you're running into these things in life and you're like, why is this happening? Why is this tugging on me? Like, go ask, should I do something about this? Is there some way I am supposed to help create change in this area? And maybe there's not. Maybe you're just like noticing the unjustness that happens in life. But maybe it is something that you're connected to and you're like, oh, yeah, I should be playing a role in this.
It's an interesting thing. And I have to say, I get on these soapboxes and I say things like, just go freaking do something. But it's also a process. Like, I'm not going to pretend like it wasn't a process for me to get to that place.
Right.
But I think that there are, sometimes there are practice runs, sometimes there are trial runs, sometimes there is like a willingness that you need to get to within yourself to be willing to do some of those things. I remember coming to a place in my relationship with the Lord where just within me, I decided, you know what, if he tells me to go, this is what I would say. And I've told people this all the time because this was the phrase. If he tells me to go sit on the corner, stand on my hands and clap my feet, I'll do it. Like, it doesn't matter how weird it is anymore. Like, I kind of surrendered that self-consciousness. I've tried to surrender that self-consciousness. Still, sometimes that happens. But I hope that I'm tipping the scale on the side of like doing more of the weird things if he asks me to do it than not, regardless of what I think people will think or say or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just saying it can be a process and that's okay.
Yeah.
But there's also action to be taken in that. So if you hear that still small voice going, oh, turn left at this light instead of turning right, but you still turn right because that's how you do it, as opposed to going, what if I follow that leading? And then, maybe you miss 4 more red lights. Maybe you run into a friend who really needed you. What if not run into like an accident, but maybe an accident, or maybe avoiding an accident. I don't know. I don't know what the outcome could be, but there are some times that I'll tell you to do something and it may be small and you may think that it's insignificant, but it might be actually really significant. And it might be significant merely in the way of simply having an act of obedience. But I would even argue to say more an act of alignment with his will. Like when you talk about obedience, sometimes it sounds like it could almost sound like slave mentality kind of stuff. I don't mean it that way. But I know that could trigger something inside of you that could get you like down that rabbit hole. But really, when we talk about, or when I talk about obedience, I don't know, I really mean like submission into the will of the Father. So like aligning yourself with that. So stepping into that flow, that really is what obedience tends to be, at least in my mind.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. Stepping into the flow.
Yeah.
Mm.
Is that all we have today?
That's all that I have.
Okay. Thanks for joining us, guys. We will see you next time.
Thank you for sticking around. Listen for new episodes every Monday and Thursday. Find us on all social media platforms by searching for Market Mystics. Don't forget to follow and subscribe. Visit upperroomcd.com where you can find more information about the hosts, projects, and guests. Go deeper by booking a coaching appointment focused on redefining identity and wealth in your life. See you next time.